Dr. Anthony, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series, all the way from sunny, cold Oslo, Norway.
Yes, well, maybe not the sunny part. Definitely the cold. You nailed the cold.
I was trying to bring some sun into it. If we make it,
I
put it out to
know.
the universe, we need sun in
This
Oslo.
is this is why I have this glorious yellow background just to remind me of what life is like.
Okay. Well, have some aquavit. That'll warm you up.
That'll warm me up real quick.
So can you, best way to start is obviously
Yeah.
introduction, but briefly, and this is the key word for men especially, briefly, and not about the business or anything yet. Where are you originally from? Where are you now? Family, something you've never told anybody ever you want to reveal now, that's fine. But that type of genre, and then we'll hit the rest of it. How's that?
So I am American by birth, Norwegian by choice. I grew up near a military base in Fort Hood, Texas. And so that was my childhood. Family moved outside of DC for a little while. I did my graduate degree in Philadelphia at Temple University. And then I flew over here to Norway one day and found home after about 3 years of doing research, 10 years working in academia, and now opening my own company. I feel that this is a good place for me.
Well, it definitely is a good place, and they know a lot about peace over there, and
They
they also
do.
know a lot about saving a lot of money in their reserves and oil and stuff like that. They're very smart, and one of my best friends when I first moved down to Florida from Montreal was Norwegian, and he was the one that introduced me to aquavit, actually. So,
It
um,
does the job.
so what about family? Family to speak of?
Yeah, my family's all still back in the US. My dad lives down in Georgia. My mom lives in Pennsylvania. Brother, two nieces, nephew all live near mom. And my
Mhm.
partner, Jessica, she lives in Cork, Ireland. She just finished her PhD in marine innovation. And so she's got an exciting career now going forward with that. But you asked for a secret that I hadn't told anyone yet. And one of them just came to mind.
Oh,
It's a fairly innocent secret. I've been living in Norway for about 13 years. 12 years of that, I have complained bitterly about the cold weather. Last year, I made the decision I will no longer complain. I'm going to embrace it. So every time it snows, I say, I love the snow. It's so amazing. I'm so excited that it's snowing. So I just continue that on a refrain in my head, and I'm hoping it'll convince me one day that I do actually enjoy the snow.
I had that conversation with somebody this morning about in Canada, we used to rationalize to the Americans in Miami and LA and whatnot that the cold is making us strong and we're mentally stronger because of the cold and all. There was a great rationalization to get us through. So, but it's always better to embrace than to fight.
My
Um,
mom would say it builds character.
exactly. It does build character. So speaking of your mom, then, what would she say and what would you say you were like as a kid or a teenager? Were you um the last kid or the first kid picked to play on the team in gym class? Were you into
Oh,
music and
yes.
sports? Were you into reading? What did you do?
I mean, I was in like little league and I played basketball and all these sort of things, but you want to talk about last picked. I wasn't just the last pick. They were ready to put somebody from the other team onto the field before they were going to put me onto the field. I was just not a great athlete, uncoordinated. They found out a little bit later in my childhood that I have terrible vision. And so, this whole time they're saying, oh, Anthony can't hit the ball in baseball. I wonder why. Well, Anthony couldn't see the ball. That's why.
A good reason.
But always pretty decent at school. So it's no surprise that I chose academia as part of my professional, journey.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So how would my mom describe me? Well, she would describe me as a good kid, a terrible teen. I rebelled like nobody's business. Mark, I had hair down to here. And I mean, nothing wrong with that, right? But I took it to an extreme. I was just like, you know what? Whatever rules you're creating, I'm done with that nonsense. I'm done with that noise. And so I rebelled my whole teenage years. Finally, I got to 19 years old, decided I was going to go work in the finance industry for a little while. and I got cleaned up a little bit.
That's the days when we thought 30 was the establishment and they were old. And so not anymore,
Oh my
right?
God.
Um,
No. I mean, I was out in the garage every day with my friends playing music and singing and playing guitar and stuff. We thought we were going to be the next, next rock and roll act to take the world by storm. You soon realize that you got a lot of passion, not a lot of talent, and so you got to find other ways of putting food on the table.
well, even a lot of talent doesn't necessarily make it.
True.
It's tough business, but that's fun. Music is a big part of all the good stuff happening in the world, so
Yeah,
that's a good thing to do. Tell us
yeah,
about, you talked about your education and
sure.
there's art, science, business admin, and then after you got your master's in public health, you were also involved in a lot of research and education between the US and Norway, actually. So
Yeah,
what were you envisioning back then? And then on top of that, you went for your doctorate in philosophy, right? I believe.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, I can't even begin. I describe myself as a computer programmer turned opera singer, turned professor, turned entrepreneur, storyteller, and I do even a little bit of stand-up comedy now. You know what? There was no strategy, there
Shocked.
was no design here. Yeah, exactly. It was just what's engaging me. I'm kind of like a cat, right? So you dangle a string in front of a cat and it just goes crazy and just, continues to chase it. I'm like that. You throw something new and shiny in front of me, I'm gonna fixate on it. I'm gonna, charge forward, try to figure everything out I can about it. And then when something else comes along, I'm like, ooh, that looks cool too. So starting with computer programming, it was just curiosity, right? I was just like, oh, this is an interesting machine. How can I take it apart, put it back together, and program everything to make it work the way, I imagine it could work. And then with the opera career came to pass one day when I bought a CD of Luciano Pavarotti in a Walmart for like $1 in like the CD bin, like huge basket full of CDs, right?
I
This
guess
was
the
the days.
Walmart crowd weren't really into Pavarotti, huh?
Apparently not. So I get this CD, I pop it into my CD player, driving my little Geo Metro, these 3-cylinder, just, tiny Lego cars. And I'm ripping down the roads in Pennsylvania back to my home and just jamming out to some Pavarotti. And I'm like, man, I got to figure out how this guy does this with his voice. Well, it turns out I'm not a tenor, so I never got to do that. But I did get to perform some operas and things like that in Philadelphia and in the at the university I was going to at the time outside of DC.
That's
So it was
awesome.
just another fun, exciting adventure to chase. I didn't get bored of that, but I came to the realization that my talent was going to limit me from having a career in this field. And that's when I came upon academia and I realized I can use science to create social change. And so I started studying international health and global health, public health issues. And I started doing work in Kenya and in African American communities in the United States, and these sort of things that really I felt that there was some change that could be brought about through the use of science and through the use of technology. And so then that got me on the road to getting my PhD, becoming a professor. And a few years ago, I did a big check mark on my bucket list of things I wanted to do. I got a grant from the EU, a 1.7 million euro grant to do work in 24 different countries around the world on gender inclusive innovation. And so as a guy who, just turned professor, still in my early 40s, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the ultimate. And as that project, kind of matured, got implemented and concluded, I realized there's got to be something else out there for me. And so that's when last year I took this new initiative to start doing motivational speaking because I felt like I could actually make a change that way. I could actually inspire new people to take on new ideas around inclusion and diversity in a big way, in a real and a substantive way.
Yeah, we find that things we think that maybe we didn't succeed in or just we enjoyed end up somehow impacting what we do, like the music, the opera, the building things, whatnot. It all comes into play as experiences and threads and
Abs-
stuff like that. And so there's a bunch of stuff I want to get in here, so I may cut you
Yeah,
off at certain points, but
yeah, please, please, please. I'm sorry. You know me. I can just go and go and go.
well, so can I. So I know how to cut off me also. But we founded Fifth Element on the premise that leaders and organizations can always do way better when they are doing good. Can you
Yeah.
share with us, you you clearly have, you know, a sense of that, like, you know, a culture aligned with that type of thing. You make note of the 7 lovely wins that university didn't teach about diversity. Are you open to
Mm.
sharing 4 or 5 or 7 of them?
Seven of them at you. Actually, I can do even better than that. I got my book here, The
Of course.
Sins and Wins of Inclusive Leadership. It's a fully illustrated book of all seven of those wins. So let me just take you through the one of them, the main one, the number one thing I think we can all do to be better leaders is just shut up. And I know that sounds so simple and probably silly, but I
No,
tell
no,
you what,
no.
the way I learned this lesson, I was teaching one day, 400 students in an auditorium, massive group of people. I'm teaching, I'm doing my thing. At the end of class, this young woman marches down to the front of the auditorium and says, Anthony, she doesn't call me Dr. Anthony, professor, or anything. She says, Anthony, I've got a list of all the things you did wrong today, and I think you should hear it. And I'm just overwhelmed immediately. Who are you? What do you think you're doing? I'm a professor. You're a student. How are you going to call me out on things? No, 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 this is not going to work. Well, she sits me down back in my office, and I say that deliberately. She sits me down back in my office and says, hey, look, these are the things you can do to be better and to do better. And it was that light bulb moment for me to kind of go, oh, wait a minute. If I'm going to be a good leader, I can't just put somebody in their place or to shut them down or ignore them or dismiss them or invalidate them. I need to take what they have to say seriously. Yeah, I might not be able to act on every little thing they bring up, but I can take on board some of their feedback, some of their critical insights. And the worst thing I can do is try to talk over them. The best thing I can do is just shut up so that they don't shut down.
I got it. Well, you know, we work with an organization. It's a global partnership between Aegis Trust and Million Peacemakers, and their program
Mm.
Nonflict. The number one
Yeah.
thing in there is active listening, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's active listening means shut up basically and listen to
First
the
step.
other person. Exactly, and
Yeah.
it's going to change the world if we can get everybody to actively listen. So yeah, cross your fingers, but I think it's going to happen. The You're talking about tech before too. The fourth
Mm.
industrial revolution is about tech, really, and now
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
AI, but VR,
Mm.
AR, and all that stuff. And the next few years are going to. We thought the last few years were going to be crazy. The next few years are going to be nuts with respect to AI, especially. Um, you know, we try to focus, and you can relate to this based on what you do on how impact and talent are totally integrated together. If you want to have sustainable results. And make money at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
What's your experience knowing many, knowing many leaders,
Hmm.
recognizing that harmony between impact and talent, and your experience of, do they understand? Do they recognize? Do they get that economic and social impact comes together? And aligned
Mm.
with that, talk about how your principles of universal design does
Yeah.
align and relate to that belief.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'll just, if I could just use myself as another example, because,
It's a good example.
these are the lived experiences, right?
Hmm.
I got invited to the UN to participate in a high-level elite hackathon one time. And these sort of invites come across your desk once in a lifetime. So when I saw that email address pop up in my notifications, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to jump on this. So I get the invite. I go to my boss. I say, hey, look, can you send me to Geneva? I want to compete in this hackathon. She says, I'm going to send you and a whole team. And so in my mind, I was like, I need to put together the stellar team, like the rock star team, right? I need to have people who are experts in engineering and health technology and AI and all these different issues. So I'm of course thinking about my colleagues, my peers. Dr. John, who's sitting down the hallway, Dr. William, who's in the building next door, Dr. Samuel, who's in another campus. Those are the guys I wanted to bring with me. My boss tells me, no, I think you should bring a few of your students. And in fact, I have 3 students picked out for you already. A woman named Dominica, who comes from Ukraine, a woman named Diane, who comes from Norway, and a woman named Dembe from Guinea, who just moved to Norway last week. They're designers, computer scientists, but they're all in their first semester of their studies. And so I'm just, my hopes are shattered. Well, we go to Geneva, we go through this whole experience together. And when we realize at the end of the day that the diversity of that team allowed us to come up with a solution that was so compelling that we won top prize. So the jury sat there and listened to all these different pitches from every other team. And when my team got up, my responsibility was to stand in the back and change the slide on the PowerPoint. Like I was just clicking the button on the computer. That was my whole role. So I wasn't out front and center at all. But these three young women were, and they're pitching this solution. And I'm looking at the jury, and one of the women on the jury starts tearing up. And I realized that what they came up with was so compelling that it moved somebody that to that level emotionally. And that's when it kind of clicked in my head. I don't need people who are world's experts. I don't need my peers. I need a group with an array of different backgrounds and experiences who can contribute new ideas in a team where there's a sense of safety and security. Nobody's going to be, oh, that's a silly idea, that's a bad idea, or just unreasonably criticize people or give them backhanded compliments. We needed a team that brought new ideas to the table and did it in a very safe way. And so that's been the thing I've been preaching to new technology leaders, to folks who want to bring innovation to the forefront in their countries and their areas. You got to bring together people from different backgrounds, from wildly different experiences, create a sense of connection, community, relationship building. And with that, everything else kind of takes care of itself. I think people are just naturally creative. They're going to naturally problem solve. And you just got to get the right people around the table.
Yeah, well, and good for you for getting sat down by that student and having these students put you in your place also to actually do that. But it is a lesson, and and part of our business is attracting the best talent to our clients also. Sometimes that involves an older person, if you will, reporting to a younger person. And the
Yeah.
smartest older person loves that if they're smart
Mm,
because they
mm,
learn. They learn and learn.
mm.
And a smarter younger person loves that because they learn also about different experiences that the younger person has, rather than I'm right, you're wrong, and nothing ever goes anywhere that way.
You know,
So
I made a term for this called the mentor verse. It's
there you go.
basically where mentorship works in all different directions. So there's not just senior to junior, but you have junior mentors kind of advising senior folks. And that's been my life with my students in a lot of cases. They've
Well, it's
been
the
the ones.
smartest, yeah, smartest thing you can
Yeah.
do, and I think it's brilliant. It's a good term too. I've seen professional coaches, um, learn from their professional players, obviously too, especially the ones that are really good, that know what they're
Oh, yeah.
talking about. Well, as there's you talked about the combination of tech and people before. There's a lot of talk about AI. It's super fast moving. A lot of conversation about ethics and where's
Mhm.
this going to go and what's the right thing. And anytime any new technology comes out or anything comes out, there's always going to be bad actors trying to do what they're going to do. It doesn't mean you eliminate something good because there might be a bad actor doing something bad with it. Um,
Mhm.
so we find, and we're working with a lot of AI, we call AI for good leaders around the mental health arena and healthcare,
Nice.
which we think is probably going to be the sector most impacted or biggestly, like that word, biggestly impact in in the world. Um, um, how do you see leaders who care about that being responsible, utilizing the diversity of ideas you're talking about,
Mm,
the
mm,
inclusiveness you're talking about,
mm.
and listening to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
actively
Yeah.
listening, not waiting for the pause to get your crap in, but not yours, but your crap in
But you said it right.
into the conversation so that the voices can be heard and the right path can be found out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, when I teach my students, especially the ones in technology, about these issues, I tell them design is about intentional decision making, right? So when we're creating new technology, we're creating new AI systems, every choice we make, whether intentional or unintentional, is a choice. It can be a conscious choice. And so I did a lot of work with like user interface design. So I tell my students, every pixel is a choice. So all those millions of pixels that are in your display, each one of those is a choice. And I think we need to take that same level of intention to the things that we're creating. And those choices then become not just you're in your tunnel vision, oh, we just got to achieve this goal, we got to achieve this goal, we got to achieve this goal, but opening up and listening, okay, who are the people that should be around the table that aren't around the table? And there's so many examples of technologies that have gone wrong because they didn't have someone around the table that should have had that voice, or someone who was at the table didn't feel comfortable bringing their voice forward. And so, when I say, it's simple as shutting up, it's creating that culture where people feel like they can have that voice, they can share their ideas, they can share their perspectives. And that's what it takes to bring these ideas forward, to take the issues around AI for good forward.
Yeah, I know it's brilliant. I love that. What was it? Mentor verse? Is that what you called it?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
we can all learn from everybody what's going on. In fact, we can
Exactly.
learn from dogs even if we really try hard. To how to be present, how to love unconditionally, and stuff like that. Also,
Absolutely.
Um, we obviously in our firm, we're committed to working with leaders who care, and it
Mm,
means they care about their people, they care
yeah.
about their community, they care about what's happening in the world. And when we say care about their people, their mental health with respect to and their physical health with respect to their life and also their financial health, all of those
Yeah.
put together. And it really then makes an impact on that employee's performance, and it's a dominoes after that. Performance, business goes better, the families feel better, etc. Um,
Mm,
it's also been proven that the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything is belonging. All the
mm,
places where, the blue zones, it's belonging. And whether you're
mm.
on a team, you're a Swiftie with Taylor Swift or whatever, you're belonging, whatever
Belong
it,
at.
it may be.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on, you know, equal access to these
Mm,
types of aspects that allow everyone, to belong and benefit from it. And it goes back to in my opinion, the shut up statement or the active
yep.
listening part where
Mm,
if voices are heard, you can still have a
mm,
disagreement, but it's a
mm.
different perspective after that because they feel that you respected them by hearing their voice.
Exactly. And so you brought up Taylor Swift, so I have to bring up the fact that the other day when I was teaching my class, I taught a whole class on listening. And so what I did was I got each of them to, think about a story in their life where they had to listen to make a decision. And then I got them to pair up and tell each other the stories, and they had to kind of mentally take notes. Well, then I kicked it up a notch and I made them do math problems while they were listening. So I would draw up math problems, really simple, 1 + 5 -3 +6 kind of thing. And so then they had to do the math while they were listening. And then I turned on Taylor Swift full volume in that classroom. The walls were vibrating, made them do math alongside that distraction of the noise. Now, the whole point of this isn't just to torture my students, what a teacher does. But the point was to give them some sort of simulation of working life. You might not have Taylor Swift blaring, but you might have, noise in the office. You might have thoughts that are blaring in your head. Oh, my boss just told me to do this. I got to do this by the end of the day. Oh my God. And now my team member came into my office and says, "Hey, boss, I'm having a real hard problem right now. I need to talk to you." Right? You got to be able to shut that down so you can give them your focus. Because if you just tune out or like half pay attention, those looks in people's eyes when they're just glazed over and just giving you those affirmations, but they're not genuine. You
Right.
got to be able to still focus in. Maybe you got a cold and you also got those pressures going on. Plus, you're not feeling well, and your team comes to you. One of your team comes in and says, "Hey, boss, this thing is happening. It's really, really rough. I'm struggling right now. I need to talk to you. I need to tell you, what's going on." And of course, a lot of our reactions in these situations are, "Oh, let me solve your problem," right? May not even be consenting to the solution. It's just, "Oh, let me fix whatever it is. I can fix it for you. Just do this," right? Boom, done. But they don't need that. A lot of times the team member knows the solution. They just need you to listen to them. They need to be heard, they need to be seen, they need to be validated. So as a team leader, your job is not to say, "Oh, here's what you should do." Instead, you can invite that. "Hey, would you like my input? Would you like my advice?" Right? Otherwise, just listen to what they have to say and validate them. Acknowledge that. "Wow, that sounds really rough. It sounds like it sucks right now. Like you're really going through a hard time. I see that. That's terrible. Is there anything I can do to help? Do you want my advice? Do you want my input?" Right? Offer that so they can consent to it before you just jump in and shove a solution down their throat that they probably already know.
Welcome to Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, type of thing. We try to fix
It is
everything.
the
Or
communication issue. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. Um, You know, in LA, we kind of say, leave them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So we'll probably have to do a sequel. But I do want
I
to
was
ask
gonna
you
say,
one.
that's it. That you're dropping a hint, aren't you?
So, one last question on this part, though, that I want to ask is, a client told me somewhere in 2021, he said, Mark, 2020, the year of the pandemic, was the year
Hmm.
that flew by slowly. And it was an amazing thing to say. Um, and a lot of us feel when you talk to people, they say that it seems like, 2020 was yesterday and years ago, all at the same time. And now we're
Yeah.
in 2024 and they can't believe what's going on. So with everything unprecedented, a lot of unprecedented stuff and a lot of things happened, and the world is still moving very fast, and it's a world on fire, as some people say. Um,
Mhm.
what are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
I think I am grateful. I was reminded what I was grateful for today, actually. This last week had been really tough on me, just a lot of stress, not a lot of things to feel excited about. And today I had a connection or a meeting with a group of people that I hadn't met with for some time. They were very old colleagues I've known for decades. And that feeling of connection, that feeling of camaraderie, that feeling of, okay, we're all working together towards a common goal. I think that's something I feel incredibly grateful. So it's the belonging thing, what you said. I feel so grateful to belong to these communities that are fighting every day for inclusion, fighting every day to showcase the value of diversity, fighting every day for equity amongst all people. That I think that's something I'll be grateful for my whole life, that I get to be part of that adventure. For me, it feels like an adventure.
Super cool.
Um, what was the other thing you said? You said
Hopeful. What are
gratitude
you
and then
hopeful
hopeful.
for?
What do I feel hopeful? I feel hopeful every time I meet with my students. So every time I get into that classroom, every time I meet my students face to face, I feel hopeful because I see in them. And I know in the US, we call them Gen Z, right? Outside of the US, Gen Z doesn't have it's not a common reference, but let's just say the youngest generation, the ones that are in college right now, every time I see them, my heart bursts because they have taken on board issues around inclusion, around diversity, around sustainability without question, without asking. They just say, this is right. We're going to do it. We're going to take this forward. So when I start my classes off, I usually start off saying, hey, look, you know what? Yeah, the world's on fire. Yeah, we're in unprecedented times. There are wars breaking out all over in all continents, but you guys are doing something great. You've already started something great. And I hope that you can continue, and I'll be there backing you up the whole way.
Yeah, good for you. That's the future. That's the present future, as I call it, actually, right now. That's the present future. Um, so then it's really important because they're looking for that hope. They're looking for a way to make a difference, and sometimes less experience, as in number of years, and more
Mhm.
experiences actually do make a difference. So thanks for being a leader who cares and brings energy with you.
Thank
Um, thanks for having a
my
last
joy.
name that you has to spell just like I have to spell mine. So and for being a leader who cares. Way to go.
Thank you.
There it is.
Yeah.